Which cultural icon do you think Met fans should embrace more? Grimace or the Hawk Tua girl?
Oh, it's Grimace. Grimace all day.
You're more of a Grimace
Grimace,
guy?
yeah, Grimace helped them go on their winning streak. Hawk to a girl, I think her 5 seconds of fame hopefully is over by now. I know there's a newer thing called Skibbity Toilet I've heard of. I don't know what this is either. I don't know what most of these things are.
I'm slightly older than you, Alon, so you have to tell me what the hell Skibbity Toilet is.
I heard it on a YouTube stream the other day. Someone was
Skibbity
like,
Toilet?
Skibbity. So I don't know if it's like a toilet that walks around scatting, like doing some, singing or something. I have no idea what it is. I don't even know if it's appropriate to reference.
That's true. I mean, I would say that if there was a scatting toilet, that actually would be appropriate.
Yes. Yeah, because scat.
Yeah, exactly.
But, no,
Grimace. A little poo reference for you when we start this thing out.
Grimace when he kind of like he does that while the other pitcher's on the mound. I like that. I like Grimace.
I've always been a big Grimace guy. I'm more of a Hamburglar type of dude, though. Grimace was just weird. He didn't say anything. Didn't he just say Grimace over and over again? His name.
I don't know if any of them ever talked. Did they?
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember Grimace. Grimace was kind of like, to me, reminiscent of Barney, but in burger form for whatever reason. And I was definitely more of a Hamburglar guy. But the fact that the Mets have been about Grimace, that and the Hawk Tua girl has just been interesting this season for them. I even saw Keith Hernandez during a broadcast, him and Ron Darling on the broadcast with who's our guy that does play-by-play? I forget his name. But on the Mets broadcast, they saw some guy dressed as Grimace, and there was an attractive woman sitting next to Grimace. And Keith is like, I kind of want to meet Grimace someday. Kind of want to meet his friend, too. All right, Keith.
He's a horn dog in the booth. He always is saying that kind of stuff.
I remember a lot of things he said in the booth. What's going on, everybody? Steven is out. He is in Hawk Tua Central, actually. He is in Nashville. So I got Alon filling in today, Alon to say, and we're going to talk about a lot of things today, a lot of football. We'll get to, you see I'm wearing the A's hat and the Cell shirt. We'll talk about the last Battle of the Bay. I went to the game last night for the A's and Giants, met up with our guy Tacky in the chat here. Eat shit, Tacky.
Ooh.
So we'll get to all that. But yeah, just real quick, the Hawk Tua girl. And I know this is a sports podcast. Mostly we talk about pop culture and whatnot. But this girl has gotten a lot of fame, and I don't hate on any of it. Because by all means, she found her niche. She let the world know what she's about. And although that shouldn't define her, but yeah, she's getting a lot of fame. And she threw out the first pitch at the Met game. And I can understand if people don't know the whole details. They're like, what the hell? This internet celebrity is going to throw out a first pitch at a Met game? To be clear also, she is supporting animal rights or helping out dogs in some capacity. So I say in that situation, she's doing the right thing. But I did find it funny. I'm going to pull up the clip here if I can share my screen here without screwing up my internet. Hang on one second, everybody. So I did find this hilarious that actually, no, I'm not going to share my screen yet because I have to go to my DMs. I don't want to show everybody my DMs. But I did find it hilarious on WFAN. Everyone just freaking the fuck out over the Hawk Tua girl just throwing out the first pitch. This is from, as I said, WFAN, and our guy Sal Licata, and he is just absolutely enraged that the Mets would do something like this. Here we go.
The Yankees have Aaron Judge and Juan Soto breaking records. Ruth, Mantle, Gehrig, and the Mets have Grimace and now Hawk Tua. Come on, bro. I can't take it. I cannot take it anymore. It's ridiculous. And then you wonder why fans get so ticked off and upset. It's embarrassing. Is it the biggest deal in the world? No, absolutely. Does it mean anything on the field? No. But that's the problem. The product on the field isn't good enough, and you're coming up with these silly gimmicks that are laughing stock. It's a joke. Hawk Tua.
I think I just want to talk about this the rest of the show.
All right, and that was our guy Brian Tierney at the end
BT.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I used to do Bay Area radio. So yeah, I just thought it was hilarious that they were making a whole thing about that on WFAN, because New York Sports Talk Radio will complain about most things. But yeah, as Ernie One tells me here, yes, she was doing it for animal adoptions. The weird part was she was there doing a press conference after the Mets coughed up a 5-0 lead. So it was weird to have her be there. Like, I understand she was doing it for a good cause, for animal adoption, dog adoption, but they put her on, like, a post-game press conference. And it's like, at that point, that's kind of weird. But she said this: I don't even watch baseball. This is my first time in New York. Honestly, I can't name a darn player on this team. Y'all really about to blame the Mets collapse on me? Which, good on her for being that confident, but I found that hilarious.
Yeah, so I don't have a problem with her doing that thing at the game, but like the Mets they've tried to do every wacky little thing they can do to try to, I don't even know why they do it. Whether it's to entertain the fans, to entertain their own players, to just prove that they still exist to the rest of the league, even though they've spent so much money over the past 5 years now. But they've done the in-game concert thing, right? With I forget who it was, but they've done like the reggaeton concerts. They've done they have their own little closer celebrations at the end of every game. They do Grimace now. Now they got the Haktua girl. I don't know. I can empathize with Mets fans who are like, we just want to win some damn ball games.
Yeah.
At the same time, about her, so I think this is the trajectory, right? So that video came out, and then all the memes, and it went viral and everything. Then I'm pretty sure she's
America's sweetheart right now.
Yeah, she went to the Republican National Convention, I think, as a guest.
Okay.
Of God knows who. But anyway, so she went to the RNC, and then maybe Hulk Hogan's guest, who knows? And then now she's throwing out first pitches.
He thought it was the wrong. He thought it was the wrong Hawk too. He was thinking of the Iron Sheik.
Yeah. So I was going to bring that up. When this originally started floating around, I was like, seeing it on Twitter, it's just people typing it out, and I was like, "What is like the Iron Sheik?"
Yeah.
Like something happened, and I was like, "Oh wait, no, he already passed away. So what's going on?" And then I was like, maybe wrestling's getting popular again. Nope, I was way off. It had nothing to do with wrestling. It had everything to do with some college girl going viral. So
Yep.
I don't know, Derek. This is wacky stuff. This is the world the Mets live in. At least they're relevant though, and that they're not moving anywhere. So that's kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know what? It's fun. Like Tom was talking about on the show the other day, Tolbert and Copes, Tom Tolbert, and he was just like, I think it's fun, but if I was her father, I'd be like, Jesus.
Yeah, that's someone's. That's my buddy asked me about her a few weeks ago when he was in town. He goes, "What do you think about this whole thing going viral?" I go, "That's someone's daughter.
Yeah,
that's what she's famous for."
Hey, but you know what? If she can push herself away from what the initial start of fame was, and she's helping out dogs, then by all means, she's probably like, try to let her name be known more than just being the Haktua girl. All right, let's get right into it, Alon, because we have breaking news. I thought that we were going to be able to talk about this today and give our opinions about who the Raiders starting quarterback could be, but it has already been announced. Antonio Pierce didn't waste any time. So we both watched the game last night. We'll give our takes on that. I did not think anybody played great last night, and hearing from Antonio Pierce where he had this to say last night, I wish it ended well for both gentlemen, referring to Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, and it just didn't. I think that he was looking for way more than what he got last night from his quarterbacks, and I think every Raider fan would agree that they were hoping for more than what we saw last week. I thought that Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew played a hell of a lot better in Minnesota than they did last night. But for whatever reason, Antonio Pierce wanted to make a decision now. I would have made the case for maybe waiting one more week and having these guys play in the final preseason game. But a lot of coaches are not doing that. So Antonio Pierce just came out and announced the starter for week 1. And he is going with the veteran. He is going with Gardner Minshew as the starting quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. What do you think about this?
I'm surprised, but that must have been a result of them probably being not even, because I think if it's an even race, then I think Aiden O'Connell gets the nod. So there must have been some pressure somewhere, either with on the roster offensively, maybe some of the skill position players, or I don't really know. It's not the choice I would have made, because I actually thought Aiden O'Connell made the better throws in the preseason games. I thought the throws that he made were more competent throws. I know he threw a pick six last night, but if you look at the Minnesota game, I thought he made some very nice timing throws, and his arm strength's just a lot better than Minshew's. But I mean, they have all those other reps that they've watched all off season, all training camp, and then through the OTAs as well. So maybe Minshew did a lot better, but the reports were always that it was kind of no one was really impressive. So it's fascinating to me that they decide to go with the guy that they already know what he is, and for sure know what he is, instead of someone that potentially could have a higher ceiling than Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. So it's not the choice I would have made, but you have to feel that Antonio Pierce made this choice not only because he thinks that it's going to give him the best chance to win, maybe in not just week 1 and week 2, week 3, but early in the season, but also maybe there was some input from the rest of the skill position players on the team that said, hey, I think we should give Gardner a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're in a better position with him as the veteran going into the season. When they made this move initially, I was like, all right, well, you know what? I would go with Gardner Minshew to start the season. And it's nothing that Aiden O'Connell didn't do last year. It's that I just trust Gardner Minshew more, but I really don't trust either guy. Like, we all know that, I mean, I feel this way, and I think you feel this way a little bit, Alon, that they really didn't address the quarterback position that they needed to in the draft. And that could have been that they waited too long and not, trying to jump up in the draft to get a Michael Penix. I mean, hell, the way that I saw the offense run week 1 in Minnesota with the quick passes, at the time I wasn't into this guy, but now you could make the case that Bo Nix could have been a good fit here with the style that Luke Getsy wants to play. So to come away with no quarterback, Brock Bowers looks like he's going to be a great tight end in this league, and the Raiders are going to use him in different ways. But to not come away with any quarterback for the future, and you could say Aiden O'Connell may be that guy, but I thought that was a big, big miss, and I'm sure that's what the Raiders were trying to go for. So, but they did want to, they know that the draft is a crapshoot, so they wanted to come away with somebody, so they signed Gardner Minshew. And between the two, early on in the offseason, when we knew that they weren't going to draft a quarterback, I would have gone with Gardner Minshew. But Steven made the case, we were talking about it last podcast, the way that the offense is schemed up with Getsy, he was telling me the reasoning why it should be Aiden O'Connell with the 2 tight end set and the way that the timing and rhythm of everything. I will say when I watched Aiden O'Connell in the 2 preseason games, the offense does seem more choreographed with him. It does seem like it flows a little smoother. But Gardner Minshew definitely, he seems like he's freestyling a little bit more. It seems like he's going deep a little bit more and, trying to look for the big plays, the gunslinger mentality. So from last night, if we were doing this podcast and I didn't know who was going to be the starting quarterback, I would have come on here and said, I think it's easier to bench Aiden O'Connell during the season and go to Gardner Minshew. I think that it's easier to say, all right, let's give the guy that was 5-5 as a starter a year ago, look good at times. He looked great in that 63-21 win over the Chargers. He looked terrible against the Chiefs on Christmas Day, but they won that game. I think that you could have made the case for Aiden O'Connell to start the season as a starting quarterback based on what he did last year, but also based on what he could do in this offense. And then, at least you know what you got. Like, you see him for the first few weeks, and then you're like, all right, we know that this is the best we're going to get out of Aiden. If we're trying to win now, let's go with Gardner Minshew. And then it's easier. I think it's easier to bench Aiden O'Connell for Gardner Minshew. Now, the way that it's announced with Minshew being the starter, I still think you could do that, but it does kind of mean, like O'Connell could stay on this team and be the backup for years. With Minshew, once you bench him and he's on a 1-year contract, that's it. Then he's going off. He's the journeyman quarterback. He's going off to the next team. So I think it's good for the Raiders' short-term success. I think they have the better quarterback playing. But we'll talk about the game last night a little bit more, but neither did wow me last night. And Antonio Pierce made that clear himself last night in the press conference.
I also think there's another component to this that I was thinking about while you were talking there, and I agree. Like once you give Minshew that shot, if he does well, then obviously you keep him around and you see how long you can kind of ride it out with him. But if he doesn't and he does get benched, he's done. With the Raiders, he'll go somewhere else. That's not a position that he would want to be in, or the Raiders would want to be in by benching him and then bringing him back. Aiden O'Connell, I think, will play this season. There's no doubt about that. I think I always thought both quarterbacks were going to play this season. It was just a matter of who was going to start. But I also wonder if the health on the left side of their offensive line has anything to do with this. With no Colton Miller being available for a while now, and I know I don't think he's on the PUP list, but still, he hasn't really practiced. He hasn't been in a single preseason game. And I wonder if the mobility of Gardner Minshew even though the mobility for O'Connell has gotten better, I think you can see that clearly on some of the plays where he is evading some pressure. Still, the mobility is much better with Minshew. So I wonder if the fact that the offensive line looks a little shoddy, especially on that left side, if that had anything to do with the decision making. And if it did, well, then you're not just thinking about, maybe who's got more arm talent or this or that, all these little incremental things. You're really looking at, man, I could put Aiden in there and maybe, like you said, Derek, it looks a little smoother with him, which I agree it does, but he's going to get sacked more because maybe, you saw what happened. I know with the second stringers and the third stringers last night, but still there was a lot of pressure getting up in his grill. Third quarter, he handled it pretty well. Fourth quarter, obviously he started off with a pick. But it's not the decision I would have made, but I'm also not going to kill the decision either. I mean, both guys are going to play. It just happens to be that Minshew's going to play first. I hope he's ready to face, I was almost said San Diego, but LA.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that Gardner Minshew gives more mobility in this offense than Aiden O'Connell does. And if that's the case, I did hear Rich Gannon bring that up last night on the broadcast that Colton Miller, we don't know what's going on with him. He may be back for the first game, and I made a mistake last week where I said that Dallas Turner beat Colton Miller on the left side. He did not play in that game. So that makes a lot more sense for the sack. But just talking about last night, I mean, Gardner Minshew was good, but he was inconsistent. So his final numbers were 10 of 21 for 95 yards. He's second week in a row that he threw a good deep ball to Trey Tucker. And I think that's what's kind of put him over the edge a little bit, is his mobility and also his ability to throw deep. But he was very inaccurate. He was forcing balls into tight windows. The 4th and 6 play where he throws really high to Harrison Bryant, the tight end over the middle. That's where Gardner Minshew is who he is at this point. Like, I think he's going to help the Raiders win games, and he's definitely going to galvanize that locker room. I don't know if you saw the clip last night, Alon, where he was mocking in a fun way, nothing combative or anything, but he was making fun of Jameis Winston, where he had that press conference where he was like, knick-knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone. He said that in the pregame, he was with all around the team, and he goes, knick-knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone. You never beat the Raiders at home. And it was just a fun thing. I think guys are going to love having him as the leader, and he's kind of got that Stabler aura about him where he's got the long hair and he's kind of weird and just hippy dippy-ish, but not like that. But it's just funny. Like, I think the team is going to have good camaraderie with him as quarterback, and they all galvanized around Antonio Pierce last year. And maybe this is the right move for Devontae to have a veteran quarterback throwing him the football. It may not be that much of a difference. I think this may translate to more wins to start, but I mean, their schedule is also brutal too, to start off too. Like, we've looked at it. I don't know how many wins they're going to have by the trade deadline, and that's a serious conversation that Raider fans got to think about is if this is all about the future and you got a good defense, but you're still figuring out who the long-term quarterback's going to be, maybe to help you get that quarterback, maybe you do need to move Devontae. That's something that we'll talk about probably during the season. But just as far as Minshew, I like the way he's looked in preseason. I like the way he looked a lot better against Minnesota last night. The problem was the Raiders started their first string guys for the most part. Devontae didn't play. I guess he hurt his, I believe it's a hamstring in practice. Nothing, I don't think it's anything crucial, but they kept him out of the game last night. Brock Bowers, I guess, had a sore foot, so he didn't play in last night's game. But I don't know, man. I thought that it was a very poor effort on offense, considering that the Cowboys were playing their backups and the Raiders offense had a hard time against them. And Minshew, he made plays with his legs, but nothing looked fluid or nothing looked smooth. It was always like just him trying to make a play. And not to say that that was the same with Aiden, or Aiden did better. I thought like the first play that Aiden O'Connell had, he has a play action fake and throws over the middle. And that's like, okay, that looks like a choreographed play. That looks good. There's times where Aiden O'Connell does have like the Brock Purdy look of him where he's just going to run this scheme very well. But last night he struggled, and I didn't think it was fair that his last play in the game was a pick six. I thought he could have finished the fourth quarter out. Like, what are we doing here? Like, at this point, it's between Minshew and O'Connell. Do we really need the third string guy to play that's not even Nathan Peterman? It actually might have been Nathan Peterman, but I don't think it was last night. I think it was just some camp arm that was there.
What, Bradley Carter? Or Carter?
Yeah, Bradley Carter. But I still think that Antonio Pierce may have rushed this decision. I don't think that they needed to make this call today. Like, the game just happened last night. You could have done it later in the week. You could have had both guys play one more preseason game. I don't see the hurt in that. I understand like a lot of teams are just like, we're not going to play our starters at all the last preseason game. But then you also have that bye week going into the season, Labor Day weekend. So I don't know. I would have waited a week, and nothing last night is going to give you confidence going into the season. But yeah, I would say if you want some veteran play, then the obvious move is to go with Minshew.
Yeah, and that's probably what the decision was 100% based off of was, okay, we have a known commodity here with Minshew that we have a longer track record to look at, so we kind of know what he offers. Aiden O'Connell, I think they have the sample size to know what he offers, what he could offer, maybe as his floor, and I would agree with that. I don't know how high his ceiling is. I do know, though, that me personally, I like his arm strength a lot more than Minshew's. I think Minshew's going to run into a lot of sacks. See, these are the things I think about Minshew, and I thought about these things when he got drafted out of Washington State. I was like, well, you can't run the air raid in the NFL, so it's not, no one runs it. He does roll out a whole ton. He kind of noodle arms a lot of balls. It's a little frustrating to watch sometimes, but he also makes great plays happen too with his legs and throwing on the run. No matter who plays quarterback for the Raiders, they're going to need to have Zamir White rush for over 1,000 yards to be a successful offense. And 1,000 yards probably low. It's going to need to be in that 1,200 and up range, maybe 1,100 and up range. So, I mean, there's 18 games or 17 games now. So he's got to hit at least 1,000 yards for them to be competent. And the tight ends are going to have to play well. And Devontae Adams, you mentioned that there's going to be a conversation depending on what their wins and losses look like, of whether he's going to need to be traded. And that's not a bad thing. It's nice to have an asset that doesn't mind playing for you, but also is not grumpy if you decide to ship him off and get some things back for him as well. I think the Raiders, regardless of what happens, even if they were to go on some run to the playoffs or something, need to seriously consider trading a lot of future picks, current picks, whatever they can scrounge up for a quarterback, for a young quarterback. And there's going to be some good ones available this upcoming draft, even though we're a little under a year away from the upcoming draft. I mean, like Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, he's going to be worth looking at. I mean, there's going to be Carson Beck from Georgia.
Yeah.
There's going to be guys to look at. So I don't know. I think the Raiders can take a little bit of solace that maybe they didn't jump up this past draft and draft a guy. But how much can you really base just off of a couple preseason games? I mean, Caleb Williams kind of been up and down in his last game, especially. I think the Raiders for sure are happy they didn't do anything with the Russell Wilson sweepstakes, if we want to call it that.
No.
I don't know if you saw Russ play for.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely get into that.
Anyway.
I don't think much has changed with him.
No, but yeah, that's my view on it. I'm kind of in the same camp that you are, Derek. Just I think both guys are going to play this season. I'm just a little surprised that Minshew's starting, but that being said, maybe that's what the team thought was best, and not just the OC, not just the head coach, but maybe the team collectively.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. We got a new guy in the chat today, the Tribe. I think a Raider fan in here. He says, the saddest part is that there's not even a QB on the roster we're excited about developing for next year. This makes it 2 years before they're irrelevant, in my opinion. You agree with that, Alon?
If you think that quarterback is the be-all, end-all, then yeah, that's 100% true. I think that they're relevant because they were relevant last year when Antonio Pierce took over. So until they start losing a lot of games under Antonio Pierce, I think they're relevant. So yeah, I would have to agree with him that there is no, if you don't have a quarterback that you're excited about, that as a fan base, you're going to think that you're irrelevant. And that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hard part is the fact that they're in the same division as Mahomes, and not even Herbert. Herbert is great in himself, but Mahomes is a different animal, and you have to go against that twice a year, and you feel like you just have below what you should have at that position in order to compete with him. Like, Minshew's serviceable, Aiden O'Connell is serviceable, but they're not the type of guys that are going to get you over the top against the Mahomes. And that's what makes the whole Michael Penix thing so frustrating, because you just see the Falcons, and they didn't need to do, like, I understand why they did it, and they can do that. They have the luxury of drafting 8th overall, but damn, like, that's a huge luxury to have where they're not even going to play him the last 2 preseason games. And I was joking around on Twitter yesterday being like, well, that just means that they're going to try to trade him. But like, it makes no sense at this point. Like, so you saw enough from him in week 1 of preseason to not play him the next 2 weeks. So when the hell is he going to play next? I mean, I'm sure there may be a time where the Falcons, I mean, you know, barring injury from Kirk Cousins, if they lock up the NFC South and they're just looking to, you know, they feel comfortable with their seeding, and maybe they bench Kirk, or not bench, but they give rest to Kirk Cousins the last few weeks, then by all means, and then Michael Penix plays. But it just feels like a waste. Like, the Raiders definitely needed Michael Penix more than the Falcons do. And you can't hate on them. They had that 8th overall pick, and they took Michael Penix, and the Raiders didn't have that pick. Maybe they should have been more aggressive in trying to get a quarterback this year. There's 2 years in a row that reportedly they were trying to do that. Like, apparently Tom Telesco was all about CJ Stroud, and Josh McDaniels wasn't. And now look at that. So I don't know, man. I think they got to figure out what they want to do quarterback-wise for the long-term future. I think this season is kind of a mix. It's kind of like last year where it's a competitive rebuild a little bit. Well, I think the defense is good to go. There's a lot to be desired offensively, and namely the quarterback. Yeah. So we'll see how the season goes, and we'll see if it's enticing enough for Devontae Adams. But, yeah, I don't know, man. I agree with what Tribe said. I think that Ziegler. Yeah, you're right. You're right, guys. Dave Ziegler wanted
not Telesco.
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, I just think that, I don't know, man. I just think that they really should have pulled the trigger on a quarterback before the season started. They didn't, and now they're going to go into the season with Minshew as the starting quarterback, and it'll be fun. He'll give us good sound bites and shit, but I don't know if it's going to translate to a lot of wins.
I think they're going to reach their win total. I don't think that their Vegas win total, not that anybody really gives a shit about this unless you're gambling, but I think they're at least going to win. They're going to win 7 games for sure. But that doesn't help them in the draft, right? Because then they're not at the bottom of the heap and they're not at the top where you're like, oh, we're successful. We don't really need a big time draft pick. So no one likes being perpetually middle of the pack / mediocre. Yeah, could they have pulled the trigger on getting a quarterback this last couple of years? Sure, they could have. I think no one was expecting a lot of outsiders definitely weren't expecting the run on quarterbacks we saw this past draft. And that's always going to be kind of crazy to look back at that and be like, man, these guys got drafted just back to back to back. I mean, it was quarterbacks going left and right. I think they are going to have to address that position in the future, and I mean immediate future. Their defense is fine. There's nothing wrong with the defense. I know some people are kind of freaking out, like, oh, they've been giving up run plays and stuff like that. You know what? I'll hold judgment on them because they have had a good enough body of work last season, especially in the second half of the season, to kind of say, you know what, let's see what it looks like when it's for real. I think offensively, this team is gonna ride or die with Zamir White. I really believe that, and he was a problem when he was at Georgia. I watched a lot of Zamir White when he played at Georgia, and he was a very good rusher, and he looks like he can be a good rusher in the NFL. But that whoever plays quarterback is gonna have to, number one, not turn the ball over. That's the thing that scares I think Raider fans the most about Gardner Minshew, is that he can turn the ball over in bunches sometimes. Yeah. So not turning the ball over is going to be important, and getting the ball to who are your 2 most important offensive playmakers this season. It's going to be a combination of the tight ends and Devontae Adams at the receiver spots, right? Mm-hmm. And Jacoby Myers is going to be mixed in there as well. But yeah, I mean, this team, if everything goes perfectly, then most people are just going to say, oh, they have the luxury of kind of addressing the quarterback position of however they want now, if they have a good winning season. But if they don't, it's going to be fire sale time in terms of getting rid of Devontae Adams, trying to get something back for him, get a little younger at that spot, and then try to trade the farm for a quarterback. But Derek, I will say this, it looks like there are teams less and less willing now to trade out of those top spots. And I don't know if it's because they fear the hell that's going to come down from their fan bases if they do, but it's almost like they look at themselves and go, you know what, we'll draft the quarterback or whoever we think we should get here with the 1, 2, or 3 pick. If it doesn't work, we can say, hey, we were just trying to get better immediately by drafting a quarterback instead of trying to look smart and trade out.
No, I agree with you, but I do think that there's teams on paper this year that have drafted quarterbacks that could also still be in those top spots. Like we all say the Patriots are probably the worst team on paper, and they're not drafting another quarterback. No. So you could find a way to get up maybe. The problem is when you're saying that this Raider team could win 7 games, then you're not going to be in the top spots to get those quarterbacks. That's the problem that happened last year where the Raiders won 8 games, but they really needed a quarterback, and they won too much for them to be, benefiting from that and move up in the draft or have a good spot where they could get a quarterback. So it's tough. And I think that I agree, Alon. I think they're in that 7 to 8, 9 win range, but it's not enough, or it's too much wins. That's the problem. I mean, you don't want to be bad, but you do want to draft a quarterback. Like getting another veteran QB is not going to be the answer, in my opinion. I don't think at this point, if Dak Prescott's available, but it sounds like he's not going to be, they may work to get a contract with him sooner than later. So I think the best chance for the Raiders' success is to draft a quarterback next year. But where are you going to be in the draft? And maybe to help you with that is to trade Devontae Adams for, you would love a first-round pick, but at this point in his career, the age, I doubt you get a first-round pick for him, maybe a second. If Brandon Ayuk's not going for a first, then I don't think Devontae is. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting this year. I am intrigued by Gardner Minshew as the starting quarterback. I think he definitely fits the Raider vibe. You have a head coach that fits the vibe. You have a quarterback that fits the vibe. It's just, are they going to win enough? And that's the problem that I have. So we'll see. Yeah. So Gardner Minshew is your starting quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders Week 1 against the LA Chargers. Real quick, just talk about the defense. There was a guy available that I thought the Raiders could have used that signed today. Stephon Gilmore signs with the Minnesota Vikings, 1-year deal, $10 million. He goes to reunite with Brian Flores, who he knew very well from the Patriot days. I thought that maybe Patrick Graham, who he is familiar with in New England as well, could have been, the way for him to join the Raiders if they wanted more, experience in the secondary. They have Nate Hobbs, they have Jack Jones, but they definitely, I mean, they're solid right now. We think on paper every year the Raiders defense is improved, and then we go to the regular season. And last year was the first time I thought in a while that they looked good defensively, but
Yeah.
I thought they could have used more veteran presence in the secondary. I mean, there's still Xavier Howard that's out there. I don't know what's going on with him injury wise or legal stuff. There's some rumors that been popping up, but what do you think about the move with Stephon Gilmore going to the Vikings? Do you think that was a missed opportunity for the Raiders to go after him?
I think it was a missed opportunity in the sense that even if you're comfortable with the starting 11 out there and a few of the depth pieces, right? I think more depth at defensive back is always a good thing, especially when you're going to be a team that is going to need to rely so heavily on your defense to be competitive in games. There's going to be some games where the Raiders defense is going to be out there for a lot, and they're going to play well in some of those games, but they're going to need bodies to try to hold the line. So it can be seen as a missed opportunity for sure. They have the cap space to do it. It's not like they're cap strapped this year. They could have easily done a 1-year deal the same way, a lot of teams were probably considering. I'm sure if the Raiders were considering signing him, they were thinking of a 1-year deal as well. But that being said, that just tells me maybe they're very comfortable with who they have in house, and maybe they like the, I think one of the things we've seen this preseason and training camp is that they're very pleased with the development of Jacorian Bennett, who really looked, and defensive backs so tough the first year. Not everybody can be Charles Woodson and come onto the scene and just be really dynamic and amazing. A good thing that Charles did a lot of other things besides play defensive back. Yeah. But Jacorian Bennett's development for the Raiders, I think they're very pleased with that. So that's been able to help them maybe feel a little more comfortable at the defensive back spot than they would have otherwise. But I would have signed him. Why the hell not? Why not? Just do it. If it works out, you feel great the way you did about picking Jack Jones up off the scrap heap. And if it doesn't work out, no big deal. It's a little bit, it's money, but it's not anything that's going to break the future of your team financially.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I thought they could have gone after him, but maybe they do look to Xavier Howard or somebody. But I do think this defense is going to be good. I think they'll probably be the best defense we've seen from the Raiders. Me and Steven were thinking about that. Would you say like since 2006, Alon?
Since you're talking about since the, yes. Yeah, I agree with that. I
mean, the 2006 season we all remember was only for 2 wins, and it was awful. Offensively, they were probably, in my opinion, the worst offense I've ever seen in the history of football that I've seen.
Oh, yeah.
But defensively, they had Warren Sapp, they had Tommy Kelly, Derek Burgess. That defense could have been playoff good. Kirk Morrison was picking off passes. Thomas Howard. That's when Nnamdi broke out.
Nnamdi at the peak of his powers.
Exactly.
You had Chris Carr intercepting Ben Roethlisberger, taking his ass to the house.
That game set back football where, Jesus. I don't think the Raiders I don't think their offensive output was more than 75 yards total. They did not have 100 yards of offense, but yet they picked off Roethlisberger 5 times, and Nnamdi took one to the house, and Chris Carr took one to the house. And that's all the offense they needed that day. I don't think it's going to be that bad with the Raiders this season.
No, it's not. It's not going to be anywhere near. No. The league's not like that anymore either.
The league is definitely not like that anymore. We're not having Aaron Brooks and Andrew Walter run for life over a offensive line that was just giving up like 9 sacks a game. But I do think this defense could be really good. Obviously, Max Crosby's the star of the unit. Christian Wilkins out there playing preseason snaps. I was impressed by that. I like the way that Jack Jones has looked. He picked off J.J. McCarthy the week before. Yesterday, he got beat on the touchdown by the Cowboys' second unit. But I'm not putting a lot of stock into that. I think this Raider defense could be really good, and that will be the strength of this team, honestly. I do think that they get by with Minshew as quarterback as long as he doesn't turn the football over crazily. They can win games with their defense. It's just the schedule is really tough. They got to play Harbaugh week 1 already. He's, the new king of LA. Then they go to Baltimore. They play the Chiefs early. The trade deadline schedule is pretty brutal. And yeah, like I've been saying, we'll see what they want to do with Devontae at that point. But I do think that this is the most promising we've seen from the Raiders defense in quite some time heading into the season. Let's just go around football real quick with what we saw from preseason week 2 of the NFL. And you brought it up earlier, Alon. Caleb Williams. He definitely had some wow throws. Definitely had some wow moments. The deep pass to Rome Odunze, the play where the defender came in his face and he eluded him. He avoided the rush, went to the sideline. Right before he went to the sideline on the right side, he threw the pass to Rome Odunze, couldn't get his feet in bounds. And then he made, a play that he's going to do a lot this season where no one's open, so he's going to have to run for the touchdown. Everybody was like, oh, my God, look at Caleb Williams rush for a touchdown. That's not what his game is supposed to be. That's a Justin Fields play, honestly.
Yeah.
The amazing play was the downfield throw to Rome and the throw he made that should have been caught for the touchdown. But besides those throws, he struggled yesterday. And so did the offense. It wasn't all his fault. But that's where it's going to be a mixed bag this season, where I think that there's going to be moments where you're like, oh, my God, this guy looks like Mahomes. And there's going to be moments where you're like, okay, he's a rookie. Give it time. So I think we have a ton of expectations. The people that think that Caleb Williams is going to be MVP this season, slow your roll big time. I think there's no doubt he's the front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Even if he gets like 20 touchdown passes, I think he's probably going to get it. But I would just say there's going to be moments where he is going to just wow the hell out of you and be like, oh, my God, what a crazy throw. And there's going to be moments where he throws a bonehead interception. And you're like, okay, he's still growing.
I agree with that. I think he's going to get sacked. And I'm not talking about at David Carr levels of being under pressure, but I think he's going to be sacked a lot. Not because he's a bad player or can't get out of it, but just because I think the Bears are going to give up a lot of interior pressure. I think anybody who's watched is kind of looking at that the same as well. So he is going to have to make a lot of mobile off-platform throws, which he can totally do. What I really hope, one of the things I hope with Caleb Williams and his development, I hope that they don't try to force him to stay in the pocket all the time. And hey, Caleb, you're bailing too early. Let this guy use his tools. Let him play the way that he played at USC. Sometimes that's going to mean that he's going to run around, not even run around, drop back a little bit too far maybe and make some wild throw that's all arm, but it'll work out. And sometimes it'll be way off because, the mechanics aren't there or he is doing a little too much within the pocket or outside the pocket. But like you said, Derek, some of those, like the one he made to Rome, that's just, you can't coach that. That's just, the guy has that ability. So let him play his game. Try to make sure he stays healthy. That's the only thing I can really see in his path that really derails him is if he doesn't stay healthy. And the only reason I bring that up is because I've seen him get banged up in games. A couple of years ago in the what was the Pac-12 championship game against Utah, he got banged up here in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium, and Utah ended up winning that game. So he can be susceptible to getting a little roughed up. Not that he's not a tough guy or a big guy, but he's a quarterback, and you want to keep your quarterback healthy. You are going to see some bad plays. He had the one where he was rolling to his right, and I don't know if they were trying to set up like a tight end screen in the middle or what it was, Derek, but it was the receiver, the tight end was right where, let's say, the right tackle would be lining up. And so he rolls to his right, nothing's kind of open, and he sees it, and he kind of just tries to gun it there. And it's just, those are plays, some of those plays he's going to need to throw away. But also you don't want to make him a throwaway machine. You want him to always look downfield when he's rolling out of the pocket. So,
right,
the ability's there. It's just the everything else needs to catch up a little bit.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, Caleb went 6 of 13 for 75 yards yesterday. Definitely had some wow moments, but definitely struggled as well. The highlights don't tell the whole story. And that's the case also with Daniel Jones yesterday. I thought Daniel Jones, if you look at the stat sheet, played all right, 11 of 18 for 138 yards. It's his first time he's playing since coming off the torn ACL from a year ago that he sustained against the Raiders. But if you watch the highlights, and I was watching the game simultaneously with other preseason games, he definitely struggled. I mean, it was a bad pick six in the end zone he threw to Jalen Petrie. And that's just a play where you probably should eat it. You probably should take the safety in the end zone. But he decided to force that ball away, and it gets picked off easily. And that's just a rookie mistake, honestly, when he's been in this league for quite some time now. And then the other interception he threw was actually an amazing play. There's really no room for the receiver to make a play on that ball. But Derek Stingley, the way he went up and got that interception, that guy's going to be a great corner this year. Don't be surprised if he's an all-pro and maybe leads the league in interceptions or something like that. But, yeah, Daniel Jones, I mean, it's funny. People have high expectations for him this season, but also it's been well displayed to the whole world that the Giants are kind of tired of him. And they say all the right things in Hard Knocks. If you watch that, I think you did a lot. If you check out that Hard Knocks,
watched a little bit of it. Yeah.
So you see Joe Shane and everybody talk about how Daniel Jones is our guy. He's got to step up this season. But they do openly talk to the other quarterbacks. They do talk about how they wanted to trade up to 3 and possibly take a quarterback. And now Daniel Jones sees all that shit. And now he's like, all right, well, now I have to go, save my job. And if he keeps playing like this, he will not be the quarterback of the Giants going much further. I wouldn't be surprised if he's benched this year for Drew Lock or even Tommy DeVito again. Probably not DeVito, but mostly Drew Lock. And that if he doesn't perform well, then that means that Joe Shane and Brian Dable are probably losing their jobs. So, because they're the ones that signed him that contract. Yeah, I don't think the interceptions tell the whole story yesterday. I thought Malik Neighbors had a fantastic grab along the sideline. He's going to be a great player in this league. It's just a matter of if him and Daniel Jones are going to be on the same page.
Yeah, Daniel Jones. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Derek. This is his first live action in over, since he played the Raiders, right?
Yeah.
At Allegiant.
It was Antonio Pierce's first game as head coach.
Yeah, so he has had the longest of layoffs, which is, I think, is what Brian Dable effectively said. It was a really long time without seeing real reps. So I do give him a little bit of leeway with that, Daniel Jones, but he's also been around now for a while. And the Giants, to their credit, have committed to him. And I think that's a positive for them, that they didn't just recycle him immediately and try to get someone else. They've had the full Daniel Jones experience. They know what he is. And they can make the playoffs with him. That's not impossible, but there's so many shortcomings. And the health of last year, if that's becomes a trend, that's not good. But also just, has Daniel Jones ever wowed you? I mean, in the NFL, maybe a few games here and there, but
the fact that he won that playoff game wowed me against the Vikings. But he's had touchdown runs. To be honest, no. Daniel Jones has never made me go, oh my God.
Yeah, you've never been like, man, this guy's on fire today. He's unstoppable. No. Daniel Jones is taking over the game. You've never said that.
Never. I mean, there might be a game here or there where I was like, yeah, he played really well. Yeah. There never was a time where I was like, damn, this guy's. I mean, I forget about Eli when I see this guy. No, I've never felt that way about Daniel Jones.
No, I agree. So I'm right there with you, and I wonder if Brian Dable is thinking, okay, one of two things better happen this season. I better win a bunch of games. We better get to the playoffs, or I better lose a lot of games. I don't want to lose games, but I need to make it evident that Daniel Jones is not the guy. I need to somehow keep my job so that I can get the quarterback I want. But that's tough too.
I don't know if he's going to have that luxury though.
I don't think he's in a horrible spot where he has to win and then is also thinking about replacing his quarterback.
Yeah, that's going to be tough because we know that the Maras don't wait too long to get rid of their coaches. And there was talk about firing him last year. So I think he's a really good coach. I should say that I think he's a good offensive play caller. Along the same lines of Arthur Smith, and I know people are going to be like, oh my God, did you watch last night with the Steelers? I think Arthur Smith and Brian Daboll are good play callers. I don't know if they're head coaches, though. That's the thing. And I don't think that Brian Dable, unfortunately, will be given a long leash to figure out if Daniel Jones is his guy or not. Speaking of the Steelers last night, we saw our first sighting of Russell Wilson as a Pittsburgh Steelers. He started the game. Justin Fields backed up. And Russell Wilson, there were times where he threw downfield, but I don't think he was aggressive enough at all last night. I think it was a lot of dink and dunk stuff, and he did not have that much time to throw. The offensive line did not perform very well. That may be because their starting center is out for some time, and they have a rookie there. Then they have a few rookies. They have Broderick Jones, the right tackle they drafted a year ago, a right tackle. But I think I just said that redundantly. The right tackle, that's right, whatever. Anyway.
Sounded good. Sounded good, though.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Russell Wilson, he looked the same like he did in Denver. He unsure of himself, not confident. It looked like a year ago in Denver where he had the training wheels on with Sean Payton's offense. It never looked like he was going to rip it. It looked like he was just doing the bare minimum to keep them in games. And that's the way it felt last night. Now, maybe their offense, it may be that they truly need a Brandon Ayuk, like another good wide receiver. They just have George Pickens. They have guys like Allen Robinson and no, sorry, not Allen Robinson. He's gone. Who am I thinking of? The guy with Van Jefferson from the Rams. He's there now. And they got Quez Watkins and the kick return guy, Calvin Austin, Pat Freiermuth. But the offense did not look good last night. And Justin Fields didn't do any better. So Russell Wilson finished 8 of 10 for 47 yards. He was sacked quite a bit, though. Justin Fields was wildly inaccurate. He was just doing the same shit he did in Chicago, and that led to some wow moments as well, just like Caleb Williams. But he used his feet more than his arm, and when he threw on the run, there was a play where he went right down the middle. The wide receiver was in the end zone, and the wide receiver did not run a good route. But also, good God, I saw it on social media. Someone would need a trampoline to get up there and get the ball. It was bad. He was wildly inaccurate last night, and I don't think it's going to be close at all. I know people are talking about well, Justin Fields could probably win this job. I don't see that happening at all. I think Mike Tomlin is always going to be in favor of the veterans, and he told Russell Wilson that he would be the starter. Now, you could always go back on your word. That's something that happens in coaching, but I would be very shocked if Russell Wilson isn't the starter week 1. But last night, it did not look any better than what we've seen the last 2 years in Denver.
I'm unfortunately watching a replay of this game because that's what's currently airing on NFL Network. So this will be the second time that I've watched this. But yeah, Justin Fields, in no world does he win the starting job unless there's a health issue with Russell Wilson. Just Mike Tomlin's not going to do that. Russell Wilson's better still than Justin Fields is, and
he's in the pole position, as Tomlin's been saying.
Okay. So racing terms, that's good.
Yeah,
but I saw Russell Wilson step up into a few just collapsing pockets, and that wasn't good. Yeah. And like what you said, it's kind of like what it looked like in Denver. He's a little gun shy. He's not throwing the ball deep as much. That's number one. But I think one of the things about Russell Wilson that gets a little overlooked sometimes is that he was such a good short route and keep offense on schedule kind of guy for a lot of drives. Every drive had a few plays where he would make just the simplest of throws, whether it's a little out to the back, a little swing pass or something like that, or they clear out some space and then run a tight end underneath, things like that. He was always good at doing those kinds of things. And then he would hit you with the big shot over the top or things like that. Well, for some reason, he doesn't have, he's older now, and he doesn't have the mobility to keep some of those plays to go over the top alive anymore. Yeah. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I don't want to say it's all on the skill position players' shoulders over there in Pittsburgh, but this receiving core is nowhere near as good as any of the ones he had in Seattle during his good years. So,
not even Denver a year ago.
No, exactly. Not even Denver a year ago. Because at least you got guys like Jared Jeudy and Tim Patrick, or what's his name?
Cortland Sutton too.
Cortland Sutton. And so, yeah, I mean, they're gonna. I don't know what the hell they're gonna look like offensively.
Yeah.
They should be better offensively than they were in any of the Kenny Pickett games, but I don't know if that's true because Russell Wilson hasn't looked good since he left Seattle.
No, he hasn't. And it may have been last night they're playing a good defensive unit in the Bills, but yeah, it just didn't look any different. It just looked like a very timid Russell Wilson, and it was the same old Justin Fields. So, yeah, I wasn't amazed with anything last night quarterback-wise from the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I was impressed. This is nothing new, but Tua Tagovailoa last night, really, really good. He was 5 for 5 in his opening drive and threw a great touchdown pass to River Craycraft. And that's what you expect. The thing with Tua is I'm not concerned about him in September and October or even November. It's December and January. That's the shit where you want to see him be worth $53 million a year. So that's my only thing with him. Jaden Daniels played in that game last night opposite Tua for a little bit of time. He was 10 of 12 for 78 yards. He looked fine. He didn't go down the field like he did a week ago with the big throw against the Jets. But if I had to say anything last night, he looked like Kyler Murray. And I think that's how they're going to use him in this offense. It's the same thing with Cliff Kingsbury. They're going to run him. They're going to have him on the quick, short passes and then going deep every now and then. He's going to use his legs. But yeah, he reminded me of a taller, skinnier Kyler Murray last night.
He looked good. There's not a lot of mental errors with him. There's not a lot. He has confidence in all of his tools. I thought he short-armed a few of the throws, but there was a little lack of velocity on them, but not a huge deal. I mean, some of the hookups that he made were kind of you expect to see them scripted in training camp and then carried out pretty easily in preseason. A lot of comeback routes, like 11-yard comebacks, kind of stuff like that. Just real good in timing, in sync stuff with your receivers. But man, he looks poised. I agree with you. You can kind of see the style of football offensively they want to play with him. For Washington fans, they have a quarterback again, that they can be excited about. And I'm not talking about Kirk Cousins. I'm talking about since RG3, they've been in that quarterback hell.
Yeah.
And so they got a guy that if he can keep developing, man, sky's the limit with him. It really is. He's got all the tools, and I just hope he did take a hit on one of his runs, but it wasn't horrible. He just needs to get out of bounds or slide sometimes.
Yeah.
That's the only critique on him.
Yeah, with his frame, he definitely could be susceptible to more hits and sustain a lot of injuries if he's not smart with sliding or getting out of bounds.
Yeah.
Drake May played on Thursday night. I caught a little bit of that, and he looked fine. He actually had some really good throws, but I would also say he should not be the starting quarterback. While he did have some, good moments, he didn't look very comfortable. It looked kind of awkward in the way that he was doing it, and I don't think that's the type of play that the Patriots want to play with right away, with him just kind of freelancing and kind of just going with the motion, playing off of just pure raw talent. And I know some Patriots fans were like, well, shit, now Brandon Ayuk needs to change his stance on the Patriots to take that $32 million a year. No. He's still going to struggle. Like, does everybody forget Mitch Trubisky lighting it up in the preseason, or Colt McCoy? I remember those days. So let's all pump the brakes. I think that it's in the best interest that Drake May does not start the season. He had some really good moments on Thursday night, but it's not enough for me to be like, wow, he should start. I think he was just playing in the backyard a little bit, and it wasn't like real scripted, looking comfortable, cool, calm, collected as the new Patriots starting quarterback. I don't think they're going to go that route.
I think the word I use because I did watch some of the tape on him, he's even when he's kind of in motion and fluid, sometimes it's indecisive.
Yeah.
And it's because he's a young guy, right? Okay. And he's on a really bad team. If I was the Patriots, I think what I would do, and if you truly do believe in him, Drake May, which they do, I mean, they spent a high draft pick to get him. Every time that they are in the third quarter and it's blowout territory, they should put him in. and they should just say, Drake,
Yeah.
go out there, make some, do whatever, run the. We're not even worried about winning the game. And some of the guys on the team might hate that, right? Some of the veterans will be like, you got to be kidding. I'm babysitting out here for this guy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as an organization, that's the only way you're going to develop this guy without putting him in there as a starter. If you put him in there as a starter, he's going to lose a lot of games, and you could shatter his confidence. You don't want to do that. So they should put him in there the same way you would develop a young player in college when you're winning by a lot. Except this time you're going to be losing by a lot, and you're gonna develop him. So that's what I would do.
I agree the same way, Alon. I think that it's in the best interest for him to sit the season and play sparingly when it's the right time to do so.
Yeah.
And he'll probably start at some point this year. He probably will towards the end when they're completely out of it. But I would not make him the starting quarterback week 1.
When they have 4 wins?
Yeah, oh shit. They'll be lucky to get 4 wins this season, honestly. Let's go through the NFC South as a division, Alon. And this is an interesting division. On paper, should be the Falcons, probably. That's the hot team. And let's talk about some of the additions they made the last few days. Trading for Matt Judon for a 3rd-round pick. I stupidly said last podcast it was a 3rd and a 5th. And I was like, wait, that's way too much. Jesus Christ. Some would even argue the 3rd-round pick's way too much for a 31-year-old pass rusher that only had 4 sacks a season ago. But I think it's a good move for them. I think they needed some veteran presence on that defensive line. They only have like a few guys, like Lorenzo Carter, I think, is one of their pass rushers, and Arnold Ipakete, I believe, is the other pass rusher. So they get some veteran presence there, and the move that I've been waiting for all offseason, besides all the contract bullshit with Ayuk and CeeDee Lamb, I was waiting for Justin Simmons to sign. I think he's one of the best free agents in football, and he lands with the Falcons on a 1-year deal worth $8 million. And I think this is a huge move because I don't think there's any question about it. The best safety tandem in football right now is Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates. And to see those guys in that defensive backfield, good Lord. And they already have AJ Terrell. They have a pretty good secondary. So I think this Falcons team is really interesting. Obviously they drafted Michael Penix for the future, but the here and now squad, I like Kirk Cousins a lot. I think having him with Zach Robinson as the former quarterback coach with the Rams, now offensive coordinator with the Falcons, I think he's gonna light it up. The problem I have with it is right now their receiving core, they made some really good additions this year. They already had Drake London. They added Darnell Mooney, the other wide receiver in Chicago, and they did add Rondell Moore. But unfortunately, Rondell Moore did hurt his knee, and he's out for the season. So as far as a receiving core, that's the one thing I worry about with them is that they should light it up offensively, but losing Rondell Moore as their slot guy, I think, is a big deal. They have other guys. They have, I think, the kick returner, Ray McLeod. That could be that guy. And he might be out for the season now. I want to say they picked up Jaheim Grant, but I think I want to say they put him on injured reserve the rest of the way. So I hope they give B.J. Robinson more carries this year. I thought that was a weird thing that Arthur Smith, for whatever reason, avoided a year ago. They need to feature Kyle Pitts a lot more. But I think the Falcons, they're being very aggressive this season. I think it's going to pay off for them in this kind of weak division.
They have a very, very fun roster. I mean, with Drake London and then Ray, they do have Ray McLeod, Darnell Mooney, Bijan Robinson, and they have a quarterback who doesn't play poorly. Kirk Cousins is Mr. Steady Eddie, Mr. Consistent. He's the most consistent quarterback in that division by far, in being positive consistency. So on paper, they should take it away. They should run away with that division. I really think the only thing standing in their way would be continued resurgence in Tampa Bay, maybe the Buccaneers, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the Falcons a lot. I want to see Bijan Robinson be up. He's definitely talented enough to be up there in the top 3 running backs in the league. When it comes to rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, he should have a very good season. He could be the leading rusher in the league. I don't think anybody would be surprised if he was. And it would be like, okay, that's kind of a coronation of him as a great pick for that organization. He was awesome in college, as you know, Derek, and you know he can do a lot in the NFL. I think defensively, I like the Judon pickup because he has proven, even though statistically last year not great, he's proven that he can be an impact player when he is on good teams. So I think that's going to help them. The only thing I kind of worry about with them is what it looks like when they're not playing interdivision inside their own division.
Yeah.
I wonder what the Falcons look like when they, and let me pull. Do you have their schedule in front of you? I had theirs,
I can't pull it up.
But okay, so I'm looking at their schedule right now. Like, what do they look like when they have to let's pick a name out of the hat. When they have to play the Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be tough. What do they look like when they have to play maybe the Chargers, who could be decent this season, with Jim Harbaugh? I mean, the one thing the Raiders are going to see, not to make it about them, but they're going to see the entire NFC South this season. So that's going to be fascinating to watch, to see how some of those NFC South teams stack up against some of the AFC West teams. But I don't know. They're good. If you had to, everyone's picking them to win the NFC South, and there's really no argument why they shouldn't. I don't think you can make an argument for anybody else to clearly win it over Atlanta.
No, I agree. I'm with you on that one, Alon. I think that the biggest question mark is, are they going to take the next step? And if they're supposed to be this high-profile team in the NFC, how do they stack up against the other NFC teams? It's clear that they're on paper, they seem better than these other teams in their own division. But
yes,
like you were saying, early on, they're going to play the Eagles week 2. They got to play the Chiefs week 3. They're going to be tested early on. So it's just a question of how they look against these other great NFC teams that we think are going to be good. And just going around the other teams in the NFC South, the Saints, they didn't do a lot this offseason, in my opinion. They got like Chase Young, but I think Chase Young's kind of over at this point. The biggest addition I thought they made this past season was getting a true, really good offensive coordinator and getting the 49ers' old assistant coach, Clint Kubiak, as the play caller. So I think that's going to benefit Derek. But the biggest question mark is Derek filling expectations. And there's a lot to be desired on this offense. I think that a year ago they struggled a lot, and then they started to pick things up as the season went along. But Alvin Kamara is not the same guy he used to be. I guess like the number one guy wide receiver wise is Chris Olave, but I think the guy that Derek trusts more is Rashid Shaheed. Taysom Hill can't do it all. I just don't think they have a lot of weapons. And honestly, if I were the Saints, I would pick up Hunter Renfrow right now to have somebody that Derek's familiar with. But I think the defense is good. I just don't think there's going to be, along the lines of Brian Daboll with the Giants, I think that Brian Daboll may get more of a long-term leash just as far as this season. Like, I don't think Brian Daboll will be fired during the season. I could see if the Saints come off slow, really slow to start the season, I could see Dennis Allen getting axed pretty quickly. And Dennis Allen was the guy that went to bat for Derek. He, had him originally with the Raiders his rookie season, and they only played 4 games together. And I wouldn't be surprised if things don't go well for the Saints this year that they fire Dennis Allen, and they may have to move off of Derek.
There is no question that Dennis Allen is a very good defensive mind. But the results have not been there as a head coach. And yeah, if they don't play well, if Derek Carr even plays up to expectations, but the team doesn't win, they can totally move on from him, and Dennis Allen will get fired. I don't think that would be a big surprise to anybody. I think in terms of what the Saints need, they need Derek Carr to throw for more than 28 touchdown passes. That's a lot. He hasn't done that in a while. I don't think he has. I don't remember, but
I don't think that 2016 season. I think he threw for exactly 28.
28. They're going to need him to play the best football of his career in terms of scoring production. They're going to need that, and he has Olave. He has Shaheed. He has. I know Alvin Kamara has really, man, they really got the best years out of him at the worst time in a lot of ways. The Saints did, but it's not like they don't have weapons. And the guy plays indoors, and the guy plays in a stadium where it's very hard for other teams to move the ball historically because it's such a loud and raucous crowd. But he's got to play well for that team to be good. If the Falcons have a so-so season, then the Saints will need a season where almost everything goes right, in my opinion, for them to win that division.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to see them winning that division because Derek Carr has not played well since 2021. And that's just okay. 2022, he did play well. He was very aggressive down the field. The offense wasn't a huge issue for the Raiders in Josh McDaniels' first season. But, I mean, he ended up getting benched anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So, yeah, he's going to need to play the best football of his career, or else it's probably over for him in New Orleans, and it's definitely over for Dennis Allen in New Orleans if he doesn't.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then the other two teams, you got the Buccaneers, the team that won the division a year ago. And I never thought that they were that impressive a year ago. I thought that they shined at times, but I didn't think they were a great team. And they just won by default in the NFC South. The Eagles were just a shit show towards the end of the year, so they just destroyed them in the playoff game. They put up a fight against the Detroit Lions, and I give them a lot of credit for staying in that game, but I'm never really impressed by them. And maybe that's just because, I don't know, like, I don't think this team is that good. I don't think they have a good running game. I think Baker Mayfield had his best season as a pro last year, and I was impressed by him, and he earned that new contract he got. But I don't think, I'm not really that impressed by the Buccaneers. The biggest thing I thought they did this offseason was to sign back Baker Mayfield, but also sign back Mike Evans, because it was always rumored that he was going to go to a different team, the likes of, the Chiefs or the Bills, and just, gang up on the lead with Mahomes on the league. But that didn't happen. He's going to finish his career as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Chris Godwin's still there for one more year on his contract. They got that slot guy, Trey Palmer. That's pretty good. Or maybe he's not the slot guy, but just the third wide receiver in their offense. And they signed Dante Whitfield Antoine Winfield Jr. For a long-term contract. He's making the most money defensive back-wise in the league, which is kind of crazy. But the biggest thing with them is that, are they really going to compete, or are they just going to be a team that wins in the NFC South by default because the rest of that division sucks? I just don't. I'm not really wowed by them by any means. So I think they could probably compete in the NFC South and be that team, maybe a wild card team, or maybe just even win that division if the Falcons are just totally not who we think they are. But I don't see them in the pecking order against the other NFC teams. Like, they're way, way down the list, in my opinion.
So with Tampa Bay, I think the big thing is if deciding whether you believe in them or not has a lot to do with how much do you think they overachieved last year?
Yeah.
Right. And I can say defensively that I don't think they can do the same. They can have the same effort defensively that they did the year before in 2023. I think they were 7th in points allowed in 2023. And then the offense was kind of as good as Baker Mayfield could make it. But it's going to be hard to do that again. And, they have a roster that is still kind of intact with some of the really nice luxury pieces, like you mentioned, Mike Evans from the Super Bowl day with Tom Brady. But that's a team that went 9-8 last year, I think. Derek, is that right?
Yep,
yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. Like that's a team that needs roster building. I think.
Yeah.
I think their floor is pretty high in terms of being bad. Like, the worst that they could be maybe is six wins, and that's if everything goes completely crap because they're in the NFC South. But they need more help. They definitely need more help. I will say this, though. I think they can confidently say that they have the second best quarterback as of now in that division. And there's because I would put Kirk Cousins above Baker Mayfield because I have more confidence in the body of work that Kirk Cousins has had over his career than Baker Mayfield has had in his NFL career.
But you would definitely put him over Derek.
Yes. Yeah, I would too. I think Baker Mayfield makes things happen, and sometimes bad things happen, but the mistakes don't seem to get him down, and he just keeps firing, and he's talented.
No, he is, and he's definitely more confident than Derek, I think, at this point in his career for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So, if I had to rank the quarterbacks, I would go Cousins 1, Mayfield 2, Carr 3. and Bryce Young 4, and that's where we are now with the Panthers. I mean, the
Yeah.
Panthers are on paper one of the worst teams in football. Ever since they made this trade with the Chicago Bears, it's all gone downhill for them. They could have had a chance at Caleb Williams. They traded away DJ Moore. They traded away Brian Burns, and their owner is probably the laughingstock of the NFL with the way he conducts himself. The one positive I will say is getting Dave Canales, I think, is a good move. I think that coming from Tampa Bay and helping rejuvenate Baker Mayfield's career could bode well for Bryce Young. I think that he brings, he definitely, he's flashy. He's the young, attractive dude on the sideline, offensive play caller guy. He fits that mold. I saw a video clip of him singing, like when all the rookies have to do their rookie shows. He decided that he, as a rookie head coach, had to participate in that. So he sang with the rookies. So he's bringing camaraderie to the organization. It's just that franchise is a shit show right now. And it starts with their owner. Who's to say that if they're just terrible this year, that he doesn't fire him and doesn't give him a chance? I don't think he really gave Frank Reich a chance, but some would say that Frank Reich didn't really develop Bryce Young very well. So maybe that's the difference that this guy will do. And Bryce Young, he's got to show that he was worth drafting first overall at this point. There's not great talent around the Panthers. They got Adam Thielen. I'm trying to think of who else they got receiver-wise. They drafted that guy.
Yeah, they got Xavier Leggett from South Carolina, who I think is very talented.
No, I mean, he definitely could be that guy. And, it's just a matter of, are they going to be looked at as the team that totally fucked up in drafting Bryce Young? And I don't think Bryce Young is bad by any means. It's not like he was a turnover machine or anything last year. He just looked lost as a rookie. And sometimes guys aren't ready to play right away. And the offensive line was not good for him a year ago. I don't know. And it could be that CJ Stroud is the better pro, and right now it looks like that. But yeah, this might be a season where they have to see what they have in Bryce Young. And it'd be super quick to pull the plug on it that early. But maybe this is a make or break season for him.
I think it is in terms of his development into seeing what kind of pro he can become. You hit it on the head with the Canales being the leader of the team now, being the head coach. Like, that's going to be super important. If he can maximize the good things that Bryce Young has historically been able to show that he can do, like he did at Alabama, that'd be great. And if he can get some of that tentativeness out of himself, that'd be good too for him. But the problem is all of that takes protection and somewhat of a competent core around you, and they don't have that. All the players who do give you a little bit of excitement on the team are all first or second year guys. So that's a very hard, spot to build from. I do think, is Andy Dalton on their roster? He's the backup, right? Yeah. Yep. So I think that's a good thing in a lot of ways. I think Andy Dalton can actually help Bryce Young just as a mentor a little bit, because Andy Dalton's been no slouch over the course of his career. Mm-hmm. But I can put so much lipstick on this pig. It's still pig. Yeah. It's not good. I don't know how many games they're going to win. They could be really, really, really bad. They could be worse than they were last year, which would be very sad, because it would probably mean that you'd be ready to redo everything. I will say this, though. Do have a couple of nice linebackers, pass rush kind of guys with Clowney and Shaq Thompson. So I don't know. Maybe, Xavier Leggett is 800 plus yard receiver in his rookie year. That'd be kind of cool too. But I don't know. I think Bryce Young is not going to get the protection he needs for a second straight year.
Oof, that's going to be tough. But that's our review of the NFC South as we see it, as far as what are the pros, what are the cons. I know I said we'll do the AFC South, but let's save that for another time, since this segment takes some time to do. So we'll save that the AFC South preview for another time. But Alon, I wanted to get your thoughts on this topic because I've exhausted it enough. What do you think about this whole Brandon Ayuk thing? From every report you've seen in the last few weeks, from Matt Mayoko suggesting that the Niners had a trade framework in place between the Patriots and Browns. Ayuk refuses to go to either place. He wants to go to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh doesn't have the draft compensation to give the Niners what they want, or not even the draft compensation, the player compensation they want for the here and now to replace Ayuk. Then they come to terms on that, but now it sounds like maybe Ayuk is going to stay with the Niners. He's going to sign the contract. What do you think about this whole shit show?
Ayuk watched that preseason game last night. I will say that Ayuk was like, maybe I don't want to go over there. Maybe
the Pittsburgh preseason game you're talking about? Yeah.
He watched the two quarterbacks and went, maybe I'll stay here.
Yeah.
I know. I read John Lynch's. We've all been following this. Anybody who follows the NFL has been following this. And if you're in the Bay Area, that goes triple, quadruple for all those people.
Oh yeah, every goddamn day.
Every day. I saw John Lynch's comments that he made on KMBR, I think on Friday. What show was that on?
He was on Murph and Marcus. He was on Murph and Marcus, and he'll be on with them, I think, either weekly or every other week.
Okay, until the situation gets resolved, and then he'll be a little happier on air too.
I mean, John Lynch is usually in a good mood, but I think Kyle and him are definitely tired of talking about this topic.
No, they're frustrated about it for sure. It's when I do listen to it, it kind of almost reminds me of when Bob Myers would be asked left and right about the health of players, and it's like he's just like, can we talk about anything else?
Yeah, Bob Myers really loved the health report every week with Bonte, and he was like, can we talk about something else, Bonte? Can we talk about I don't know, anything,
anything? But I don't get it. I've probably read more Pittsburgh Steelers fan forums, chats, and like fan-sided crap that I've ever read before. No offense if you read a lot of, all the super external media stuff for your team, that's fine. But to read it on other teams is a little much sometimes. So
yeah, that's blasphemous for a Raider fan, for like you.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm going to go on all the Steelers forums and kind of read what they're saying. And obviously they would love Ayuk, and they think they have a trade in place. The thing I don't get, though, is why the Niners can't just pay the money. And I look at over the cap. I see the cap situation that they're in next year.
Yeah.
But I have looked, and I'm like, okay, so let's think about the players that they've had contract disputes or difficulty signing, whatever you want to say, over the past couple of years. It's been Debo, it's been Brandon Ayuk, it's Trent Williams, and Bosa, right?
Yep.
Is that about
That's
it?
So,
So you got those guys. The problem with this one is I think this might be the biggest no-brainer of them all because he's so young. He's younger than Debo. He's less susceptible to wear and tear as opposed to Debo Samuel. I don't know. At this point, I think they should just sign him and make a post June 1st cut next year of one of their older players. And that unfortunately, that's probably going to be a player that a lot of people like, or players that a lot of people like. But that's the reality of it. When you have so many, John Lynch said this. GM's calling him all the time saying, I wish we had your problem. You got so many talented players. But I don't know. There's a lot of guys I can think of on that team who make a lot of money who are getting long in the tooth. And Brandon Ayuk is a young, good player who you should want to keep around, especially for your young quarterback, Brock Purdy, who's got to get paid too. So God forbid you have to pay them both at the same time. You don't want to do that.
You don't. And you know what? The topic we keep bringing up is that eventually they're going to have to pay Purdy. And everyone keeps bringing it up that he is eligible for a contract next offseason. The thing is, they don't have to pay him on next offseason. No. They don't have to. They definitely could. Well, actually, you know what? So he's on his fourth year. So when would he be a free agent? So this is his third season. So he played 2022. Yeah, 2023, 2024. So he'd be a free agent 2026. If my math is correct. 2022, 23, 24, 25. Yeah, okay. So he'd be a free agent then. He would So you don't need to sign. You don't need to extend him next offseason. You don't have to. If everything's in a good spot and you trust him and he trusts the organization, he could still play for the $900K that he's playing for right now. But also, if you're Purdy at this point, you've been putting up these numbers. You could also be like, guys, I can't live off corn seed endorsements for the rest of my life. I need to get paid here. So I understand that as well. My whole thing is with Ayuk. At this point, I'm not expecting him to go back to Pittsburgh. I don't think he even should go to Pittsburgh after what he saw last night. The place to be is with the 49ers. And I agree with you, Alon. It makes the most sense because of the age and the talent he has. But also, he could be the most replaceable of the guys that they gave contracts to. Now, you could say that's Debo. And yes, I do think if they sign Ayuk, and everyone's been talking about this, then most likely we'll have to move on from Debo and George Kittle. That's the two guys that I'm looking at that they may have to move on from next season. But they're trying to go all out for this year. And from everything that's been reported, from Mike Garafolo to everybody that thinks they know the contract details, all of the aggregator websites, it sounds like basically this contract has been agreed to for the most part. It sounds like it's in the vein of 30 a year, and for 3 or 4 years, the usual wide receiver money. The only hang up is Ayuk wants to get something worked out in the last year of the contract. And I guess that stuff is also holding up the deal for Trent Williams because that will impact Trent.
Yeah.
So at this point, it happens when it happens. But I will say this. The Niners play today, and sounds like Purdy's going to play tonight, 5 o'clock on Fox between the Saints and 49ers. We're recording this on Sunday afternoon. Not a whole lot to get into with the Niner preseason game, in my opinion. I think Purdy will play a series. I even question if he should play at all with Trent not being out there, but that's what they're doing. Players are off tomorrow. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if tomorrow the goal is with Kyle and John to go to Ryan Williams and Ayuk and say, let's just get this fucking thing done tomorrow. There's no reason why. Yeah. We're in meetings tomorrow, but we're not in the practice field. We should hammer this out by tomorrow. So I wouldn't be surprised if by this time tomorrow on Monday, August 19th, Brandon Ayuk has a contract. But I'm not holding my breath either. I've thought many a time in the last 2 weeks that this thing was going to be over, there's going to be resolution, and nothing happened. So, it's funny, like John Lynch was asked straight up by Brian Murphy, what's taking so long with this contract? And John Lynch goes, I wish I knew. And the reality is, of course he knows why it's taking so long. Of course he does. It's just, you don't want to tell the media, or you want to tell the fan base what's holding it up. You don't want to make Ayuk look bad. You don't want to make yourself look bad. So this is where it's at. And I'm hoping by this week, we have some resolution, because usually when Steven is out on vacation, news breaks, and he went to go to Nashville this weekend, and we always joke that in years past, when Devontae Adams got traded to the Raiders, he was gone. You and I did a show while Shohei Ohtani signed with the Dodgers.
We've done some crazy ones.
So by any means, I'm hoping that this goes down at any second. I would anticipate hopefully tomorrow, but who the hell knows at this point?
I love John Lynch's comments of, our communication's great between not just Brandon, but his agent as well. And both sides are getting along. And I really wish I knew what the hang up was. And it's just like, okay, yeah, sure. The hang up is money. And that's all it is. The two prime candidates I really look at that I would, if I was running the Niners, I would not want to, but I could justify it by clearing up money to sign Ayuk would be Trent Williams, even though he's a great player, right? But he's about to be 37 years old, and I think they can find a replacement for him in the future. And then the other one would be Kyle Juszczyk. I don't think people because you want to keep Kittle. Kittle's only 30. So, and you want to keep Debo, even though he's getting closer to 30 and he's got a lot of wear and tear so far, but he's still Debo Samuel. I don't know. That's the problem. You can't move Bosa, obviously.
No.
There's a lot of other pieces. I don't, just got Javon Hargrave, so those are the two pieces that I look at. I look at Trent Williams, even though he's such an integral part of that team, and I look at Juszczyk. But that's a tough decision, right? That's the only way I can really see them clearing up the money if the money is that big of an issue to get Ayuk.
I can't see them moving off of Trent Williams until Trent decides that he's going to retire.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I don't think they're going to do that. Juszczyk, definitely. They were close this offseason.
Yep.
Kittle, you can make the argument he's going to stick around for past this season. I think Debo's the guy because then they can get value for him. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Dieter Kurtenbach, our guy, he had a report out there that he believed that the Niners were going to trade Deebo Samuel to the Baltimore Ravens this offseason, and that did not go through. So there could be something there. They're going to have to make some changes. But, I do anticipate this Ayuk news happening hopefully soon here, maybe tomorrow.
And I want to say real quick, it's not like I read that's not a story that's popped up anywhere that Trent Williams is going. It's just I was just looking purely from a money standpoint. And that's if the goal was to keep all your skill position players intact.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you keep Trent Williams as long as he can possibly play because he's so elite. Deebo Samuel would be the obvious one, and we've talked about it ad nauseum before on your podcast, Derek, on the show that eventually all the things that they've asked him to do are going to catch up with them, and people still got a bad taste in their mouth from the Super Bowl. There's no way around that. So if you're going to keep Ayuk, the ones to go would be Juszczyk and Deebo Samuel.
Yep, I agree with that. Real quick, Alon, you and I, whenever you're on, I'd like to get your take on some college football. Have you downloaded NCAA yet, the video game?
Oh, I've only played it maybe way more than I want to admit. Let's put it that way.
Are you running Alabama as your franchise mode?
I did for the first one, and then I went 10 national championships in a row is a little too much. So let's scale it back. So I went to Navy, and believe it or not, very hard to get people to want to go to a military academy who might instead want to go to the NFL.
Yeah, I would say so. And are you throwing the football at Navy?
The first 3 years we threw maybe 15 passes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It was pretty, but then we revolutionized everything and won 2 national championships. And then I got offered a job from Alabama, and so I left. I said, Navy, see you later. And I was like, why do I do this every time? This is not
Full
good.
circle, my friend. Yeah, I need to download this game. I've definitely put it off for way too long. I just don't know when I have time to play the video game, but it sounds like a hell of a lot of fun.
I've wasted too many hours, Derek. I've heard, but it's fun.
I've heard a lot of people having fun with it, but I want to get your take on the AP top 25 for this upcoming season because it's interesting, especially in the top 5. So no surprise, Georgia's number 1. They got a lot of guys coming back from their team a year ago that was undefeated up until the SEC championship against Alabama. Ohio State number 2, Oregon 3, and this is the one where you and I are going to have to discuss this. Both are alma maters. Texas is 4, Alabama 5. Do you think Texas on paper is better than Alabama this upcoming season?
I think they're better in a preseason poll because of the fact. I do a little bit. And the biggest reason why is because of organizational stability. It's not just the roster, it's also the coaching staff. So they're not installing new systems. Like Alabama, they do have a returning quarterback in Quinn Ewers, who I think is going to be awesome this year. I think Texas is accurately ranked. I think maybe the team that's getting the most disrespect out of the entire top 10 would probably be Florida State. But
at 10?
At 10. I think they're better than Michigan. I think Michigan is getting a top 10 spot just because of the fact they won a national championship last year.
Right.
And maybe the most overrated team in the entire top 25 would be USC. USC could lose 5 games this year. So without Caleb, even though they have Moss, but I don't know. I agree with the top 5. I think Ohio State is clearly the second best team from a talent standpoint. Georgia is, feels like they have unfinished business. They had the most dominant stretch since Tom Osborne's Nebraska teams in like 93 through 95 ish, where they went like 36-1. So Georgia's had that level of dominance the past 3 years or close to. I think the SEC is going to be a freaking knife fight. There's no divisions. It's just going to be the best two teams go play in the SEC championship. But out of the so Derek, let's look at the top 12 teams here. I think you can pencil in Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, and Alabama pretty easily into the playoff. And then it's who are the other 7? As of now, who are the other 7? That'll be the interesting part.
So I got to really bone up on who's in what conference these days, because I am still living in the past. Like when I see this top 25, I'm like, okay, where are they right now? Who's in the ACC? What conference? To me, I know everybody likes Texas, and this is just me being a Texas fan and an alumni, where I'm skeptical of the whole thing of them going to the SEC. Because to me, yes, they made it to the college playoff a year ago, but did they really coast into a lot of games? Like, they barely beat some bad teams. Like a game against Kansas, I think I want to say a year ago, they barely won that game. Texas they show up for the big games. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they lose to Washington. And sometimes they lose to Oklahoma. But sometimes they can barely beat a Kansas or whoever. You know, it's just that I don't think they're a juggernaut yet. And I think like everyone thinks that they're back, but I have yet to see that. You know, I thought that Quinn Ewers is fine. He's a fine quarterback, and he'll probably be drafted, if I had to say, in the second round of this upcoming draft. But when you're in a battle between Texas and Washington, and you got to go score for score with Michael Penix being that quarterback, I did not like Quinn Ewers in that game at all. I thought that the Texas had a good running game, and they managed to come back in that game just because Washington had no off switch. It was either go 100, just go like 110% with the offense, just throw deep every play. They couldn't really run the clock out. That was a problem with Washington, so that was the way that Texas was able to creep back in that game. I'm not a big Quinn Ewers guy. I think that eventually Arch Manning will take over, and that's where you see this offense will really explode. But I need to see this before I believe it with them playing in the SEC. So there was no more divisions in the SEC, Alon?
No, I think the East and West, that's gone. It's just there's too many teams now to do East and West, and too many of the new teams are in the West. You know what I'm saying?
So the only time that Texas and Alabama could play each other is in the SEC championship game.
No, they could play each other during the regular season.
But they're not scheduled against each other this year.
Correct. I just mean it hypothetically they could play each other
in future years. In future years, but for this season, Texas, I think, as far as like the big SEC teams, Texas only plays Georgia, so the schedule is favorable. I just want to see how they play against the SEC team consistently, but that's gonna be interesting. I think Texas should play way more SEC teams then. They need to be tested.
Well, they are going to play a full slate of SEC teams this year. They're going to play Mississippi State. They'll host them. They'll play Oklahoma. They'll play Georgia. They'll play Florida. And they'll play A&M at Kyle Field. Oh, and they'll play Kentucky and Arkansas as well. So they are playing a lot of SEC games. Luckily for them, I would say the most difficult ones, the Georgia game, obviously, the most difficult one is at home. They don't have to worry about that, but they are going to have to go on the road. Kyle Field, that could be difficult, but we're going to know who Texas is very fast this season because they got to go to freaking Ann Arbor and go play Michigan at the Big House. And even though Michigan's got a new quarterback now, new coaching staff, no leading wide receiver.
We'll even see if the coaching staff is there if they're not suspended.
Yeah, if not, that's true too.
By the way,
scrutiny for that.
the whole thing with Harbaugh suspended from recruiting, I guess, for 5 seasons, or 4 seasons, whatever it is, if he comes back to college football, and then he was supposed to be part of the coin toss or an honorary team captain for one game, and then they couldn't do that. The whole thing's a shit show. I'm glad Harbaugh got the fuck out of there because the way the NCAA handles things is ridiculous to me.
So no, I agree, and the Big Ten didn't do him any favors either in trying to protect him.
No.
They could have done a much more vigorous job of that. But yeah, so the SEC has no divisions, and I know we're kind of talking about the SEC because both our alma maters are in the SEC. But yeah, no divisions anymore. But yeah, they're gonna have to go to Michigan, and if they want to play big boy football, they're gonna have to go do it in Michigan, regardless of the fact that Michigan has lost talent and is going to be much different this year. But overall, the top 25, I mostly agree with it. Like I said, there's a few teams in here that are overrated. USC is the one that pops out up to me the most. I actually think a Notre Dame is maybe a little higher up than I would put them, but they have a pretty favorable schedule. So if the preseason top 25 AP ranking has anything to do with favorability of schedule and being good towards the end of the season, then you would probably have to put Notre Dame in the top 10. And they also have an advantage in a way of not playing a championship game since they're an independent. So they can always avoid an extra loss. The problem is they'll never be able to be one of the top 4 seeds until they're in a conference. But yeah, I like the ranking. I think it's good. I think it's going to be a really exciting season this year. I kind of wonder who the non-power 4, because the Pac-12 is not a power 5 anymore because they're only the Pac-2 now. I kind of wonder who the non-power 4 team is going to be to get in. I don't know who that's going to be.
Yeah. I forget how many slots are now in the college football playoff?
12.
12? Yeah, that'll be interesting.
So they went from 4 to 12. So there's going to be an opening round, then a quarterfinal, a semifinal, and then a final. So it's another 4 weeks to the season.
Jesus. Yeah, that's going to be intense. And Texas should make it, but there's going to be a lot of teams that make it too. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes this season and all the turnover of conference realignment. You guys see I'm wearing the green today. The A's are about to play the Giants coming up, I think it's a 107 first pitch. But I went last night with my little brother, and I saw our guy Tacky was at the baseball field in Oakland Coliseum. Said what's up, told him to eat shit. He told me to eat shit as well. And it was packed. It was a good time at the ballpark. You had Giants fans screaming, "Let's go Giants." You had A's fans screaming, "Let's go A's." And it was good unity of the Bay Area. Baseball fans coming together. Before the game, the ceremony, they had the Wall of Fame. Our guy Chris Townsend was out there doing the Master of Ceremonies job, and they honored Miguel Tejada, who was one of my favorite players as a kid. Tony La Russa spoke a little bit about what's going on with the team and, leaving Oakland and everything and how it hurt him, but how he wants the fans to still support the team, and that's a hard ask. But I get it. I get it. Tony was there because the A's asked him to, and he was going to support the team. And Jose Canseco was there, fitting into his tightly fit jacket while he was getting honored. But last night was just fun. A's won 2-0. Love that. They always split, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants won today. But it may be, last night I was thinking about it, it may be one of the last times, if not the last time I'm there, because the final game has sold out. I didn't get a ticket. That's easy to do, though. People drop out sometimes, so that may be easy to do. But the last game is a day game, and I don't know if I'm going to be taking off work to go do that. So it was interesting. Last night I soaked it in. I went around the ballpark, went to the treehouse. It was a good time, and it was the most packed I've seen that place in a long time. And I know the last day at the Oakland Coliseum will be a party, and I can't wait for that. It may get a little rowdy. I wouldn't be surprised if you see fans start ripping up seats because that's it. Like when, you and I were at the last Raider game. Well, not actually, it wasn't the last Raider game. I was there for my last Raider game, which was on Christmas Eve, 2018, against the Broncos. And that's where you heard the rumors about maybe the Raiders potentially playing at Oracle Park, which would have been just blasphemous in my opinion. And it never was realistic. I know Raj Mathai had that report, but that was a total ploy by the Raiders to, gain some leverage against the city of Oakland. So I remember going to that Christmas Eve game, and that was the last memory I have of a Raider game. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I saw fans bum rush the field, and it was fun. Bart was packed. You couldn't get home for a long time, and that may be the same vibe for the last day at the Oakland Coliseum. But yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to go to that. I live in Oakland, so I'll be hanging out with the city when I get home from work, and hopefully, enjoying the fun of, hopefully fun celebration. Nothing gets too crazy. But yeah, just being there last night and what was the last Battle of the Bay series, it sucks, man. I mean, A's and Giants, it's not a true rivalry. It's a Bay Area rivalry. It's just been fun, between the two fan bases to talk shit. The spoiled Giants fan base. You're all spoiled. And the A's fan base, just to go back and forth at each other. And it's not like the only true time that they played where it mattered was, in 1989 in the World Series. And that kind of is not remembered in the same way. What overshadows it, obviously, is more important things of the earthquake. And the A's couldn't even have a parade. And I get that. It would have been in poor taste to do that at that time. So, but over the years, I always remember the fun of, going between both ballparks, my dad being on both sides. I always remember Giambi going up against Barry Bonds. Giambi wearing all there was a photo I tweeted out a couple years ago where I was like, this is how I remember the Bay Bridge series, where the A's were wearing all green, not in Kelly green, but like that darker green.
Yeah, that dark green. Yep.
And the Giants wearing all black. That's what I remember the Bay Bridge series being in the early 2000s, when you had Jason Giambi going up against Barry Bonds, the AL MVP and the NL MVP. So the fact that we won't have that regional rivalry anymore, that the Giants are going to have to go all the way down to Sacramento for that, just kills me. And just being at the ballpark last night, and I've heard it a million times this week of people saying, like, all three teams have left Oakland. Can you blame the teams? Can you blame more Oakland? I'm tired of having that debate. The reality is the place that I love, my sports home, is going to be empty soon. And Alon, you grew up going to games there. A great deal of East Bay kids, that's what they know, and that's what I know. And it's just going to suck, man. So I enjoyed going last night, even it is, kind of sad to think about that. That place will be empty soon.
So that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you if you enjoyed it. So
no, I did.
Good. I think everybody who wants to go should go before it's gone, and not just for like a pity party or anything like that, to go have a fun time.
Yeah.
Because once it's gone, you're going to have to go to San Francisco to go see a ball game, or some Stockton or Sacramento or somewhere else, San Jose, or Oakland, and go see the Ballers play. But this is a Major League Baseball we're talking about. It's not minor league or indie ball. So, yeah, I mean, it is sad. I will never understand. Well, I shouldn't say that. I will never be happy with the fact that new stadiums and new facilities couldn't be built in the East Bay somewhere.
Yeah.
And I always would have preferred Oakland, right? But it didn't have to be Oakland. They could have done it in other places, and I would have been fine with that. Hell, I would have even accepted once upon a time Cisco Park, or whatever the heck they were going to call that thing, when the A's wanted to go to San Jose. Okay, it's not Oakland, but I can deal with it, right?
Yeah.
It's not the East Bay, it's South Bay. But the idea of there being no sports in the East Bay anymore, even though I don't live there, doesn't make me happy. That's for sure. Even if all my favorite teams do come and join me here in Las Vegas, I still am not, I'm not like gloating about it or saying, ha ha ha, they're coming here and no more in the Bay Area. It's sad. I grew up in the Bay Area. I still love California. I still love the East Bay. So yeah, it's just, you know what? It's just a crappy situation all around, and it's missed opportunities for multiple organizations, for politicians, for everybody. So I think people should go out to the games and should have fun. I like that they're playing competitive baseball. The A's I'm talking about, the Giants too are competitive. Some nights, and same with the A's. Like, they're not world beaters. Neither team is, and the Giants clearly have the better record. But
Yeah.
When they play against each other, it's a fun matchup because it's like, okay, they're probably going to split the series. Who's going to win which game, and what fashion are they going to win it in?
Yeah.
But this stuff's over. And what's really sad about No More Battles of the Bay with the Giants and the A's is it's not really a rivalry, like you said, Derek, because the one meaningful time they played was in the World Series, and that's pretty much it. And that's overshadowed by the earthquake. But it was more of just a get together and a celebration.
Yeah.
If anything, that's the Battle of the Bay that I remember. It's very much like there's ribbing going on and stuff like that, but everybody's just having fun.
Mhm.
It's not like it's not people fighting. It's definitely not that.
No.
Yeah, it's more just a fun time out to see. It's a great time to go to the Coliseum or to 18 or Oracle Park with your buddies who are friends of the opposing team, and everybody has someone to root for. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's unique. That's for sure.
No, I mean, and just how close the two franchises are with each other with this current iteration of the Giants.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Obviously, Bob Melvin, Mark Hanna, who was just traded a couple weeks ago, Matt Chapman, Farhan, all have connections to the A's. So and you know what? I will give a lot of credit. I've said this before, but I will give a lot of credit to Giants fans this year who have been very supportive of what's going on with the A's. They don't like this either. I think that even though they realize that the A's never really were going to compete with the popularity of the Giants in the Bay Area, they also liked the fun rivalry between the two franchises. And yes, Giants fans did shit on the A's and how they do business and stuff, and that's all in good fun. But I appreciate when the A's go to Oracle Park and you see Giants fans wearing Cell shirts, because everyone in baseball agrees this is a fucking scam that John Fisher's running right now. So I do commend the Giants fans for being very supportive of, no one's like, good, get the A's out of here. They're like, the hell's going on here, man? This is the way it shouldn't be. So I definitely commend the Giants fans and the A's fans that are still showing up to the ballpark and just enjoying what remains of a great place, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I'm very sensitive to the fact that no one wants to see teams move. So
yeah,
I feel bad about that for sure. And I can understand why people just hate it. Just absolutely hate it. And I can understand, I wouldn't do it, but I can understand why people are just like, I'm done. I'm not going. Yeah. That's not me. But I understand why people are doing that. But yeah, it's just a reality. There's going to be no professional sports, mainstream professional sports, at the Oakland Coliseum complex. I mean, and it's really here's, I don't think I've told anybody this, but I think it's kind of interesting, or express this thought out, that it happens right off the heels of such a dominant time of that area. And when I say dominant, I'm talking about the Warriors.
Yeah.
I mean, that Oracle Arena was going crazy, and the A's were making playoffs and stuff like that, but really the Warriors were the cream of the crop. And it's like you go from the highest of highs to all of a sudden the lowest of lows, and now poof, gone. So
yep.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough in a month when they have the last game there. Before we get out of here, I did want to bring up this story. You and I were doing a show together when we got the news. It was a couple of days after Christmas that John Madden passed away. We were live doing a show, and then you and I saw the news. We're like, oh my God. And it was a couple of days earlier prior to that John Madden had his documentary that was on Fox, made by, I believe, Tom Rinaldi, who made that, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a very well done documentary. And I've seen a lot of things on Madden over the years. And there always was going to be the inevitable biopic made of John Madden. And last year, there was an article or news official release that David O. Russell, who's made Silver Linings Playbook and American Hustle, Three Kings, directed all those movies. he was going to make a John Madden biopic.
Three Kings with Ice Cube.
Yeah.
He did that one.
Yeah, he did. George Clooney, Marky Mark, and Ice Cube. So and George Clooney, I think, has got on record saying like, I'm never going to work with that fucking director again. But he's making a Madden documentary or a Madden biopic, a Madden movie, and the first choice was going to be Will Ferrell. I think all of us last year were like, okay, I can't see it, but I'm willing to watch a movie with Will Ferrell playing John Madden. Yeah. And then we get the news this week. It's not Will Ferrell anymore. It is crazy ass Nicolas Cage. And believe me, I love that you're on today, Alon, but Steven is a huge Nicolas Cage guy, so we'll definitely talk about that when he comes back. I enjoy Nicolas Cage. I think that he's unaware of how hilarious he is because I think he just hams it up now. Like he was in a movie a couple years ago where he plays himself. I think that movie's called The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. It's a fun movie with him and Pedro Pascal.
Mm-hmm.
But he's definitely leaned into being an exaggerated version of himself. And we all know like the classic YouTube video of Nicolas Cage where it's Nicolas Cage losing his shit, where he's screaming through the years of all his movies. The famous one, of course, being Wicker Man. Oh, not the bees! Ah! And, all that shit. Nicolas Cage is a gem. But I cannot see him playing John Madden. I'm sorry. It just doesn't make sense to me. And when I saw this news, I was like, what's going to happen? He's like, well, I'm going to make a football game, a revolutionary video game where you have all 22 guys on the field. And then I'm stealing the Declaration of Independence.
That's pretty good, actually, Derek.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got something there.
Or I could see like John Madden, like negotiating to be on Monday Night Football, and he's like, they're like, well, sorry, John, we love you to be part of the broadcast, but Dennis Miller's our analyst right now. He'll have to wait till his contract's over. I'll wait, and then I'm gonna take his face off. I'm sorry. Like I know this is the easy joke to make is just say lines from Nicolas Cage's career and then put it into Madden terms, but this makes no sense to me. I cannot see Nicolas Cage as John Madden. I can't see it.
Put the bunny
down.
Like from Con Air. He's gonna do something like that.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. It's I saw the news last night actually, which was funny when I texted you. You're like, yeah, we're gonna talk about that. I was like, oh great, okay. So I did a deep dive on researching it, and so I saw Will Ferrell, like you said, was they were thinking about putting him from the part, and God, it was some other actor who's actually a serious actor. They were thinking about putting in as well as the part. I read it yesterday. I forget who it was.
Do you remember who it was? Any other movies he's been in?
Oh, it's a famous person. That's for sure. But
well, the big name that everybody keeps throwing out is John Goodman, and for years, I think I've said this before on the podcast. For years, I've always wanted to make a Raider movie or miniseries in the same way or the same vein as Winning Time. I thought that you get somebody to play Al Davis, you get somebody to play John Madden, and I always thought in my mind John Goodman would be that guy. But John has gotten older, and I don't know if he fits. You remember the guy's name?
It was Hugh Jackman.
No. No, I'm sorry.
Australian jacked John Madden.
I just watched Deadpool and Wolverine a couple weeks ago. I think his muscles are all CGI in the new movie, but there's not enough CGI or prosthetics that can make Hugh Jackman look like John Madden. I'm sorry.
Did you ever see Vice? Did you ever see the movie Vice with Christian Bale?
Oh yeah,
where they did the fat suit to make him look like Dick Cheney?
No. Christian Bale gained that weight.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay, so
Christian Bale, American Hustle, he gained weight.
Yeah, he is a method actor. That's true.
He gained weight. He gained that weight.
Okay, well, they made him look facially and everything like that, like Dick Cheney. I'm assuming they're gonna have to do some type of work with Nick Cage.
Yeah, but like the voice too. Like I can't like. Can you like? I'm gonna do my best Nicolas Cage. Just like, oh, boom, Pat. There's You see that bead of sweat off of Larry Allen's butt crack? That's a swampy. I don't even know, dude.
Could be talking
Like,
about sacks.
yeah, exactly. Or just
Yeah.
like, he's like, man, Brett Favre. I love Brett Favre. It doesn't even sound like with Matt, it's like, hey, boom, hey, Brett Favre, Brett Favre. A tough acted to enact it. With that stuff, like Matt
guy-
Nicolas Cage, like I'm Jesus Christ. I don't see it at all.
Maybe the energy, maybe he'll have the energy, but it might not sound like Madden, that's for sure. If he has some of the frenetic energy from his younger days, but did they miss a layup by not just getting Frank Caliendo? I know that would have been super like lowbrow, and everyone like, oh god, this is just
no. But
basically...
you know what? He probably would have done it justice, even though Madden. It probably would have gone against the wishes of the family because Madden was not a big fan of Caliendo. Although later on he figured out, okay, he's not making fun of me. He's kind of doing an exaggerated version of me.
Yeah.
Someone brought up Shane Gillis, and I was like, Shane Gillis could look like Madden, but he's not an actor. He's a comedian.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other like bigger men that could play John Madden. I was thinking of the guy, he's like a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. You know the dude that was in that show, Mike and Molly, the big dude that was opposite
Kevin James?
Not Kevin James. He looked like Kevin James, but he was what's her name? Melissa McCarthy. He was opposite her in this show. It was a sitcom on CBS. And it was one of those sitcoms you would never watch, but you watch enough football where you're like, hey, watch this show, and you never watch it.
Bob Hart's Abishola, one of those shows.
Yeah. Exactly. No, that's the guy.
That's the guy, right? Yeah.
That guy, and I guess he lost a shit ton of weight, so he couldn't pull off playing John Madden. Ernie one in the chats here who says John C. Reilly. You know what? I could see John C. Reilly being that guy, but John C. Reilly's not big. Like Will Ferrell, he probably could have got away with doing the voice. He probably knowing Will Ferrell, he probably would have done it justice because he's a big sports fan. I'm sure this kills Ferrell that he's not doing it because not only did he lose out on being Dr. Jerry Buss, which he's a huge Laker fan, and that caused a rift with him and Adam McKay. People don't know this. I think if you watch the Step Brothers bloopers, there's a point where Will Ferrell says, like they're at the wedding and he screams out like, "Mom, I want to go home and watch the fucking Raider game." Will Ferrell is a Raider fan. He grew up in LA and he grew up being an LA Raider fan. I'm sure he would have loved playing John Madden, but yeah, it's going to Nicolas Cage. I can't see it, man.
The most perfect person.
You got a mommy bucket, you got a daddy bucket, and you got a baby bucket. You know that old clip.
Yes. Where he's talking about the Gatorade buckets on the sidelines of like the New York Giants game or whatever.
Yep.
I hope he does a good job. I want the movie to be good. This in no way is ever going to happen, but I would love if it takes place in the 70s. I would love like Leo DiCaprio to play Al Davis. that would never happen, but I just would love the idea of a cool guy playing Al Davis. I think that would be funny. But
the guy that was in Mike and Molly was Billy Gardell. That's the name of the actor.
Okay, Billy Gardettos. I like that guy. They missed an opportunity on this about 35, 40 years ago. There was only one man who was ever perfect enough to play John Madden in a movie, and that was John Candy. John Candy should have played John Madden. He would have been amazing at it. Big fat guy, funny, could also be serious. Would have been amazing. But I don't know. Nicolas Cage. I mean, he's just doing everything now. He's got to finally be Superman in the Flash movie a while ago. I mean, I'm a big Nick Cage fan too, and I've watched his bad movies as well.
His bad movies are entertaining as hell because that's the thing. Like Nicolas Cage has he can't ham this up. Like it can't be like him screaming the whole time. Like it's got to be like a good performance.
He's got to do a good job. Whoever it is, that they get to round out the cast around him. I also thought there's got to be a way to put Kurt Russell in this movie. If it takes place in the 70s, I need a 70s Kurt Russell in there just because he's a cool like 70s looking guy.
I don't think that it's going to focus at all about him coaching. I think it's going to be just based on the video game.
The video game. So that's what I read.
Which is going to be interesting. Like I make a whole movie about that. I don't know how that's going to go into play, but I always thought that Nicolas Cage, he could have been a good Al Davis.
He'd be great.
I definitely could see Nick Cage playing Al Davis, but John Madden, I don't see at all.
I would like Al Pacino to play on Davis. I think Jamarcus Russell's a great quarterback. Get over it. I think that would be pretty good. But
Oh yeah, he would have been. Yeah, just win, baby.
just win, baby.
We're gonna win. You believe, commit to excellence, baby.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm excited for it, but when I saw it announced, or I read the article, it was Nicolas Cage. I was like, what? And then I was like, oh, Will Ferrell. Man, that would have been a good choice. And then I go, Hugh Jackman. No, this makes no sense.
No sense whatsoever. And yeah, Ernie one here says she's got a great ass. Yeah, if Al Pacino was Al Davis and he's like, I like John Madden. He's got a great ass.
he's got a great ass. Yeah, he would have.
Get your big butt out of here. He does.
That's Bill King's call.
Yeah, that is Bill Cook. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that you know what? If it actually focused on the football side, if there's any focus on the football side of things, there's so many opportunities to get some just crazy actors for cameo roles. I would love it. I would love like if Kurt Russell they de-aged him and he's like Kenny Stabler or something.
Jesus.
I think that'd be so cool.
Well, who would be a guy that'd be like if Nick Cage plays John Madden, who's a good like ridiculous like guy to play Pat Summerall?
I was thinking about that. Who plays Pat Summerall and goes over the top with it? I think you would have to.
Yeah, like if they're getting Nick Cage to play John Madden, who would be like a good like opposite of him as Pat Summerall? Like who's a guy? Yeah, like it'd be like like Tom Cruise to play Pat Summerall or Matthew McConaughey. Like
Tom Hanks would be interesting as Pat Summerall.
Dude, Tom Hanks as a Raider fan would have been much better as John Madden.
I also think would be funny as Pat Summerall would be. I would like if Steve Martin could act really old and a little drunk. I would like to see Steve Martin, Pat Summerall. I think that would be pretty funny. But
yeah, that would be funny.
Oh yeah,
coming to a theater near you whenever it comes out. Madden, starring Nicolas Cage. Jesus Christ.
I hope they get the story right and it's not like John Madden sat in his garage and developed the code for the Madden video game himself.
No. I don't think anybody would buy that.
I would.
You would?
I'd be like, oh, damn, I didn't know he did this.
All right. On that note, everybody, we'll be back on Wednesday. Alon, thank you as always for filling in, man. And I think we're going to be doing it a lot more because Steven's got to prepare for his wedding. So I'll be calling upon you a lot more. I don't know if Jesse and Steven are doing a honeymoon right now, but yeah, dude, you'll definitely be on more because Steven's got to prepare for a big old wedding. But
for sure.
We'll be back on Wednesday and we'll review, I guess, the Niner preseason game. But I'm not really sure there's going to be that much to dive into. If there's anything significant, we'll talk about it. But if Purdy just plays a couple series, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Bo Nix plays later today. We're recording this on Sunday at 1:00. So, yeah, man, Bo Nix actually looks pretty good. We'll see how he does today as he starts against the Green Bay Packers. And hopefully by the time we do this next podcast, this Brandon Ayuk shit is over. But Alon, thank you as always, sir. Thanks to everybody in the chat today. Ernie 1, Ernie 2, San Jose 91, new guy in the chat today. The Tribe, Raider fan who joined in the chat. AJ Cruz. And a guy earlier who was talking shit, so I had to ban him. It's the first ban of the chat. Don't talk shit in here, guys. Be nice. All right, until the next time, see you Wednesday. Alon, say what we always say.
Hey, a lot of people think that Brandon Ayuk maybe is holding out for too much money, but that's just your opinion, man.
Ooh, nicely done there. Nicely.